Dawn arrived on March 6, 1836, precisely at 5:30 a.m. Almost 1,800 Mexican soldiers initiated their attack on the Alamo Mission walls located in San Antonio, Texas. The subsequent hour-and-a-half encompassed events so dreadful that the Mexican officers who observed them remained silent for decades. Some never spoke of it at all. The narrative you were taught in school depicted a scene of valiant last stands, with Davy Crockett brandishing his rifle, Jim Bowie defending himself despite his illness, and William Travis making his legendary stand. However, this is not the entire story. The first-hand accounts from those who were actually present, along with documents that historians have discreetly kept from mainstream narratives for over a century, unveil a significantly different reality. I have devoted weeks to scrutinizing original correspondence, Mexican military reports hidden in archives, and survivor testimonies that contradicted the heroic tale that America preferred to tell. What surfaced was drastically different from the version found in your textbooks. You are about to learn why the majority of Alamo defenders met their demise outside of combat, what the Mexican forces did to those who attempted to surrender, and why one specific Mexican officer faced repercussions for showing mercy. If you are prepared for the genuine history that has been excluded from classrooms, stay with me. We are about to uncover truths that have remained concealed for nearly 2 centuries. After 12 days, 189 men defended the Alamo against General Santa Anna's troops. Reinforcements were not on the horizon. They were entirely surrounded. By March 5th, death was unavoidable. That evening, William Barrett Travis penned his final letter, which was not the famous victory or death message from earlier. This letter was personal, filled with desperation, and addressed to a close friend. Travis was aware of their fate. Everyone was. But here is something that was never mentioned in school. Escape was feasible. There were multiple opportunities to slip away during the siege. Some actually managed to leave. A messenger named John Smith successfully escaped on March 3rd. Travis officially dispatched him with messages, yet it was fundamentally a chance for survival. Most individuals stayed behind, not out of bravery or a wish for martyrdom. They were convinced that help would come. Colonel Fannin, accompanied by his 400 troops, Sam Houston leading the main army. Someone would arrive, but nobody did. On the evening of March 5th, the defenders heard the Mexican army preparing for the final assault. Artillery pieces were being moved into position. Thousands of soldiers encircled the mission. Trumpets were rehearsing the degüello. The degüello warrants an explanation. It is essential for comprehending the events that followed. In Spanish, degüello translates literally to cutting someone's throat. This battle signal has its origins in Spanish conflicts with the Moors. When this call was sounded, it conveyed one clear message: no mercy given. No prisoners taken. Absolute ruthlessness. Every individual within the Alamo heard those trumpets practicing that night. The implication was unmistakable. Santa Anna aimed for more than just a defeat. He sought total destruction. At 5:30 a.m., the degüello was sounded for real. 1,800 Mexican soldiers surged toward the walls from all 4 sides simultaneously. From the north, south, east, and west. Santa Anna's tactic relied on overwhelming speed to thwart organized resistance. The initial 15 minutes actually favored the defenders. The Texans occupied a superior position with their rifles. They unleashed a devastating barrage on the Mexican columns below. Numerous Mexican soldiers fell. Some estimates suggest that casualties in the first few minutes alone exceeded 100. The assault stumbled. Officers yelled at their troops to press on. Some soldiers fell back. Then the Mexican forces executed a strategic maneuver that was both ingenious and frightening. They ceased attacks on fortified positions and focused entirely on the north wall, the most vulnerable section with the least defenders. The wall crumbled. Mexican soldiers poured through the breach like a broken dam. This is where every film you have seen completely misrepresents the events that transpired. The popular narrative in Hollywood portrays the defenders as having fought until the very last man. Davy Crockett wielded his rifle, Old Betsy, as a club, while Jim Bowie fired from his deathbed. Travis continued to use his shotgun until the end. However, numerous eyewitness accounts present a contrasting perspective. Mexican Lieutenant José Enrique de la Pena was on the scene. He entered the Alamo during its final moments, and his diary entries challenge nearly everything that Americans believe about this battle. De la Pena noted that once the Mexican forces breached the walls, the defenders' resistance quickly crumbled. Most of them were overwhelmed within minutes. The Mexicans had superior numbers, bayonets, and momentum. The violence unfolded rapidly, chaotically, and brutally. Yet here lies the hidden truth, the detail that undermines the heroic narrative. Several defenders sought to surrender. De la Pena specifically recounted discovering multiple defenders who had discarded their weapons and were begging for their lives. He documented their declarations as prisoners who had capitulated. Other Mexican officers supported this account, including Colonel Fernando Uriza and Sergeant Francisco Becerra, who was also within the walls. These men were not cowards. They had fought valiantly for 12 consecutive days against an army 50 times larger, witnessing their comrades perish. When the walls were breached and hundreds of soldiers with bayonets surged through, some made the instinctive choice to attempt to save themselves. Santa Anna had issued clear orders: no quarter, no prisoners. Mexican soldiers executed surrendering defenders on the spot. Some were bayoneted, while others were bludgeoned to death with rifle stocks. A few were forced to kneel for execution. De la Pena described the scene as one of utter horror, and even the Mexican soldiers carrying out these orders were profoundly unsettled by their actions. One defender's death became particularly renowned, or rather, the myths surrounding his death gained fame. Davy Crockett, the legend, the frontiersman, the Hollywood superhero. De la Pena's account indicates that Crockett was among those who surrendered, found alive after the fighting had ended, brought before Santa Anna alongside other prisoners, and executed under the general's direct command. I must emphasize that this account is subject to dispute. Some historians argue that De la Pena either fabricated or exaggerated the events. Others point out that the details in his diary align with other Mexican sources that have never been published together. What is certain is that by 6:30 that morning, every defender was dead. The battle lasted approximately 60 to 90 minutes in total, not hours. Not a glorious final stand where men fought until they could no longer continue. It was 90 minutes of chaos, terror, and massacre. Santa Anna was not finished. Following the battle, he made a decision that even his own officers deemed excessively cruel. He ordered that all bodies be burned, every single one. 189 men were stacked and set ablaze. Francisco Antonio Ruiz, a Mexican officer and the mayor of San Antonio, was given the orders to oversee the burning. His subsequent written account is considered one of the most disturbing primary sources from the entire Texas Revolution. Ruiz described the bodies piled in layers with wood placed between them, resembling a funeral pyre. The lack of sufficient wood resulted in incomplete burning. Consequently, the bodies smoldered for hours. The stench was so overwhelming that Mexican soldiers became ill. Residents of San Antonio sealed themselves indoors with closed windows for 3 days. Ruiz was unable to sleep for weeks afterward. The images he oversaw continued to haunt him indefinitely. This raises a question that is seldom contemplated. Why did Santa Anna take such actions? Mexican military tradition typically honored fallen enemies. Even Texan rebels were granted burial. This included those whom Santa Anna regarded as traitors to the Mexican government, which categorized every Alamo defender in his perspective. But to burn them? To deny them burial? That was a deliberate act of desecration intended to convey a message. Santa Anna aimed to instill terror throughout Texas. He wanted everyone to comprehend that rebellion resulted not only in death, but also in utter dishonor. No grave, no marker, nothing. Initially, it was effective. When news of the Alamo reached the rest of Texas, a wave of panic swept through the region. Families hurriedly fled east towards the United States border. The Alamo eventually became a symbol of unity. However, in those initial days, it served as a stark warning. This is the cost of defiance. Not every Mexican officer supported the events that transpired. There exists an account that historians have largely ignored due to its complexity, namely the story of Colonel Francisco Javier Portilla. Portilla was a seasoned military officer in Santa Anna's forces. He took part in the assault on the Alamo. During the final assault, as per various accounts, upon witnessing soldiers executing surrendering men, he sought to intervene. He placed himself physically between the prisoners and the firing squad. He confronted fellow officers, arguing that military honor necessitated the humane treatment of captives. Santa Anna became aware of this. Some sources suggest that Portilla was swiftly arrested and executed for his insubordination, while other accounts claim he was dishonorably discharged and returned to Mexico City in disgrace. In any case, he ultimately paid the highest price for his act of compassion.